This is Kashiwazaki Kikarawa, the largest nuclear power plant on Earth. For 13 years, its 7 massive reactors have sat silent, dormant monuments to one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. But this week, something remarkable happened. Japan just gave the green light to restart this giant, operated by the same company that ran Fukushima. This is about a nation confronting its nuclear trauma, making an impossible choice between energy security and public fear. This is the story of Japan's nuclear reckoning. On Monday, December 22, 2025, the Niigata Prefectural Assembly made history, approving the restart of Kashiwazaki Kikarawa's Unit 6 reactor. This is the first nuclear plant operated by TEPCO to restart since the Fukushima Daiichi plant melted down nearly 15 years ago. With 7 reactors and a total capacity of 8,212 megawatts, it's the largest nuclear generating station in the world. After more than a decade of silence, Japan is bringing it back online. TEPCO plans to restart Unit 6 around January 20, 2026. That single reactor alone will boost electricity supply to the Tokyo region by 2%. Among them was Ayako Oga, a 52-year-old farmer who fled Fukushima in 2011. Her old home sits within the irradiated exclusion zone. We know firsthand the risk of a nuclear accident and cannot dismiss it, Oga told reporters. A recent survey found 60% of Niigata residents don't think conditions for the restart have been met. To understand this decision, we need to go back to March 11, 2011. At 2:46 p.m., a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck off Japan's northeast coast. About 50 minutes later, tsunami waves up to 14 meters high slammed into the coast, killing approximately 19,500 people. At the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, the tsunami knocked out the main electrical grid, then flooded the backup diesel generators. Without power, the cooling systems failed. The reactor cores in Units 1, 2, and 3 began overheating. Fuel rods started melting at temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius. The extreme heat caused chemical reactions that released massive amounts of hydrogen gas. That hydrogen exploded, blowing apart 3 reactor buildings and releasing radioactive materials. The accident was rated Level 7, the maximum on the International Nuclear Event Scale. Approximately 160,000 people were evacuated. The global shockwave was immediate. Germany accelerated plans to close all nuclear plants. All 54 nuclear reactors in Japan were shut down. After Fukushima, Japan had to replace 30% of its electricity generation overnight. The solution? Massively increase imports of liquefied natural gas, coal, and oil. Last year alone, Japan spent 10.7 trillion yen, roughly $72 billion on LNG and coal imports. Japan became one of the world's largest LNG importers. But there's another problem: climate change. Japan committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050 and cutting emissions by 46% by 2030. So in 2024, the Japanese government released its new strategic energy plan with a bold target: increase nuclear power to 20% by 2040. It's not just about climate. It's about energy security. Japan imports nearly all its fossil fuels, making it vulnerable to geopolitical shocks. Of the 54 reactors that shut down in 2011, only 33 remain technically operable today. And of those 33, only 14 have successfully restarted. The new Nuclear Regulation Authority imposed some of the world's strictest safety standards. Utilities had to prove they could withstand massive earthquakes and tsunamis. In October 2024, the Inagawa nuclear plant restarted, significant because it was the closest operating plant to the 2011 earthquake epicenter. These upgrades are expensive, costing billions of dollars per plant. Even after regulatory approval, companies need local government consent. So why is Kashiwazaki Kikarawa such a big deal? First, sheer scale. At 8,212 megawatts, this is the biggest nuclear plant on the planet. Second, this is TEPCO's first restart. Tokyo Electric Power Company, the operator that lost control of Fukushima, hasn't run a nuclear plant in 15 years. The plant's history doesn't inspire confidence. In 2020, an employee used a colleague's ID card to enter restricted areas. In 2021, investigators discovered the intruder detection system hadn't been functioning. The Nuclear Regulation Authority issued a corrective order in April 2021, prohibiting the movement of nuclear fuel until problems were fixed. TEPCO insists they've learned their lessons. "We remain firmly committed to never repeating such an accident," said spokesperson Masakatsu Takao. Japan's nuclear restart is happening within a much larger global context. While Europe largely turned away from nuclear after Fukushima, that's changing. The reason? The same trilemma Japan faces: climate goals, energy security, and the need for reliable baseload power. There's also a new factor: artificial intelligence. Data centers powering generative AI are energy-hungry monsters. Nuclear has one massive advantage over renewables: capacity factor. It runs 24/7 at over 90% capacity. Meanwhile, Asia is going nuclear hard. China has 55 reactors operating and is building 26 more. South Korea reversed its phase-out decision. Japan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most seismically active zones on Earth. The Noto Peninsula earthquake in January 2024 was a stark reminder. Evacuation planning remains contentious. If another disaster strikes, can you safely evacuate hundreds of thousands of people from the area? Then there's waste. Japan still hasn't solved long-term storage for high-level radioactive waste. No community wants it. And fundamentally, there's trust. Once broken, it's hard to rebuild. TEPCO's handling of Fukushima created deep skepticism. So is Japan making the right choice? The honest answer? It's complicated. This isn't a simple story of good versus evil. Japan is betting that modern safety standards, regulatory oversight, and operational discipline can prevent another Fukushima. When Unit 6 at Kashiwagi Kariwa powers up in January, it won't just generate electricity. It will test whether Japan has truly learned from its worst nuclear nightmare. The world will be watching, because Japan's choice today will shape energy policy across Asia for decades to come.